What's my horse's handicap? The fact that you're backing him?
Everyone loves a newbie. That's why Paddy Power Games are giving all new customers 60 free spins on daily jackpot games. New Paddy Power Games customers only. One per customer. T's and C's apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
Welcome to this weekend's Racing Postcast Super Saturday edition for you. Myself, Dave Alton, in the chair. Delighted to say that Graham Rodway joins me in the studio. On Skype, we have the Racing Post betting editor, Keith Melrose, and from Paddy Power, James Ryan. James, a little bird does tell me it's actually your birthday today. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is indeed. I don't know how you found that out, but not overly impressed. But
that is shoddy scheduling, my friend. What a way to spend it with us. Super Saturday, G. Let's just have a little word with this with everyone. A couple of years ago, the courses were up in arms about it. The TV channels were all up in arms about it. The scheduling was a nightmare. Punters couldn't get their heads around it. We're going to try and make it as easy as possible for people today. With you in the chair and all your theories, is that possible?
And getting the times right as well. That's not always easy, is it? But this year they have moved the scheduling around a bit, haven't they? I see they seem to have moved the July Cup back a little bit. Because there was a time, wasn't there, where you had like one big race, 5 minutes, the next one, then the next one, John Smith's Cup was it, and then the July Cup. Whereas they've actually moved the July Cup back to 4:40 at Newmarket, and we've got a bit more space and a bit more time to relax in between races, but not that much time.
And Keith, are you a fan of Super Saturday, or is it a bit of a nightmare?
I can see how you could divide it up better across, especially August, when you don't have anything like this. But you're not going to complain about having this much racing so chock full. It's not a question for us as punters to answer. It's maybe one for race planners to answer, really. But I couldn't do it every Saturday.
No, exactly. No, fair enough. And what about you, James, from a bookmaking perspective? Is this just like, here they come, the punters, or is it like, I behind the sofa, all the favs are going to go in?
It's probably a bit of both. We'd like probably a little bit more time between races so people can actually digest what they're going to be betting on. But other than that, we can't really complain. Probably the more racing, the better from our perspective. Okay,
so there's a little thought about Super Saturday. For one, I mean, I'm quite excited about it, but we've also had the Thursday, of course, of the July meeting, the Friday, and so, I mean, there's a lot, isn't there? Let's start at Newmarket. It's the only place to start, isn't it? With the opening 220 Newmarket Bet365 mile handicap, Class 2. This is a really classy race. James, let's go to you first, if you wouldn't mind. Give us some prices and we'll go from there.
Good stuff. Honest Albert is our 11-8 favourite. Victory Command 9-2. Beirut 11-2. Aquan 11-2. And 6-1 bar.
John Gosden then could get punters off to an absolute flyer. Honest Albert, G. Beat Beirut last time, didn't it, Nottingham? Beirut was long odds on to do that. Honest Albert was coming back on his seasonal debut. There was no fluke about it at all, was there?
No, I mean, Beirut came there to win his race, didn't he? And Honest Albert just outstayed him. He was very powerful towards the line, I thought, Honest Albert, going away quite nicely. Although I did get the feeling, when you watch a race, you just think, is that as good as it looks? I just felt that they were under pressure a long way out. Certainly the winner was under pressure quite a way out and really just sort of ground them down towards the finish. And I always think you need a little bit of pace about you around Newmarket's July course. And I'm quite keen to take on the market leader here. He's obviously going to be popular with a Frankie factor. Obviously had another fantastic Saturday last week. I mean, what a ride that was on that Eagle thing, whatever it was called, Dermot Wells. I mean, he got that up right in the shadows of the post to beat Ryan on Mekong. I mean, incredible stuff. I'm quite keen to take on Frankie. I'm going to go with Aquan, who's coming here on a hat-trick for Simon Crisford. I just like the way this horse goes through his race. He travels really nicely through his race. As I say, I think that's important at this track. It is downhill most of the way at Newmarket July course. Yes, there is an uphill finish.
There's a big uphill finish.
There is a big uphill finish, but if you stand down in that dip, where that dip is, and look both ways, it's uphill both ways. You know what I mean?
No one ever talks about the July course being a stiff course, do they?
No, I think that
stiff finish maybe. But
it's a stiff finish, but it's downhill all the way to that finish. So you do have to travel into that race. If you can't go the pace, you're going to struggle. I think Aquan can go the pace here, and he is really powerful towards the finish on both his last starts. He was coming home very strongly on both occasions. I think he's open to more improvement. Aquan.
Since the cheek pieces have gone on. Keith, what have you got to add, my friend?
I would quite like to echo what George said there about that Nottingham race to an extent, because the two, Beirut and the horse that finished third that sort of pulled away, they didn't actually end up finishing that far ahead of the pack. And Honest Albert was off the bridle turning in. You could make the case he was still green, Actually, that's probably part of the case why he could be so far ahead of the mark of 90. There was just that feeling that the race maybe wasn't quite what it could have been, but that's not to say Honest Albert isn't a better horse than 90. I wouldn't be getting torn at 11 to 8, but I wouldn't be putting anybody off who wanted to back him, because I get the distinct feeling that's a better horse than that. It might take maybe a little bit further and a couple more goes until he really sharpens up, but I think that's probably quite a good horse.
Okay, fair enough. And James, is this Honest Albert one that you're looking to take on, bounce factor, or is this a horse that's probably got group pretensions?
Yeah, I think we could have maybe a group horse in our hands here. And if you look at the last day, like Beirut was giving him £2, and now he's giving him £7. So it's fairly hard to see Beirut being able to reverse the forward with him here. I thought he was slightly green the last day, kind of on and off it. And just the way he stayed on, I thought he could, progress into a nice horse. I think it'll be fairly tough to beat here.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I like Aquan as well, to throw that into the mix. Let's move on then. As we said, we're going to try and keep this as short as possible for you. Each race, 255 next at Newmarket. Superlative stakes into Group 2 company. We go 2-year-olds coming out, and loads of once raced maiden winners here, including from Godolphin. James, can you give us some prices, please?
King's Command is our 6-4 favourite, followed by Year of the Tiger at 11-4. 1 Elcano 13-2, Maxi Boy 8-1 and 10-1 bar.
Okay, let's start with you then, James. Let's reverse it up a little bit. King's Command, Godolphin, once raced, Charlie Appleby. This is his course, isn't it? Are you worried about that 6-4 holding up, or is he going to drift?
I'd say he might stay fairly steady at that. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw a bit of support for Year of the Tiger, obviously, with Aiden's horse having won on Thursday. But the horse that I like in this is Maxi Boy. Just thought, basically, he's been very green in his last 2 starts. One is maiden, just about got there in the end. And then in the Coventry, he was still really off the bridle at the start. Then he kind of got into a little bit of a rhythm. Recorded the single fastest furlong then in the Coventry as he made up a load of ground. And then just got a little bit tired at the end of the race. I think if Frankie can get him into a rhythm here, he'll be able to lie up over this trip. I just think he could have really every chance come the finish.
Maxi Boy, I must admit I had a bit on him in the Coventry as well. Keith, let's come to you now. Corto, of course, won this last year for the boys in blue and Charlie Appleby. Are we looking at a horse of similar ilk, or?
Well, we're looking at another really promising and exceptionally well-bred once-race maiden winner. Would I be taking 6-4 against several others that fit a similar bill? Probably not. I mean, the one I looked out and whose debut really appealed to me was Juan Elcano, who ran at Haydock and was really patently green all the way through it, and he got up to be a pretty solid-ish 80-odd horse, who's since improved, and the third's improved as well, I think, and beat him handily, really, because Kevin Stott wasn't absolutely going for everything. He was still letting the horse learn on the job, really, as he came to him in the last furlong, and the first 2 were miles clear of the rest. This Juan Elcano cost quite a lot of money. He's a well-bred horse. I think he's going to end up well up to this sort of grade, so he'd be the one I'd be looking at the prices currently available. Did anybody else have a look at Ropey Guest and how he ran in the Coventry, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah, it was a funny one, wasn't it? I mean, he hadn't looked anything at all, but I can't see anything wrong with that Coventry run. He looked like he was. If you took that in isolation, you'd say get a minor pattern 7 furlong race, and that horse will run really well. But and he's top on RPRs adjusted, and he's a rag of the field. I probably won't back him, but it was something that caught my eye a little.
I'll add to that. I was sitting in the press room that day at Ascot with Graham Dench, and he said, just have a look at this Ropey Guest. I'm not suggesting he's going to win at all. And we watched back the replay together, and we were like, he's actually run really, really well. 18-1, G-Rod?
I had very similar to Keith when I looked at this race, actually. I mean, like Keith, I sort of ordered it up by RPRs first.
Okay.
And Ropey Guest obviously came out on top, and I thought, 7, 4, 6 with the form figures or something. And I did have a quick look at that race, and, I thought, yeah, he ran better than his finishing position, and he might run well. But, having watched the videos, I just couldn't get away from Juan Elcano.
2 ticks for him.
Massively impressive in that race at Haydock. I know it was on heavy ground, but he did absolutely everything wrong. And it looked like there was no way he could win the race coming inside the final furlong, and he absolutely flew home. The second and third have won since. I'm very surprised that he's such a big price. To me, that's just about the most promising run on offer, and I'm expecting him to improve significantly. The interesting thing with the favourite, King's Command, is I always like to back Godolphin juveniles on the Newmarket July. I think when you and I were sitting here a couple of weeks ago, I was saying how you can pretty much back these Godolphin 2-year-olds blind on the July course, and they're very hard to beat.
Yeah.
And it was a really interesting run first time out. I mean, he tried to make the run in, and then come a furlong out, and he looked beaten all ends up. I mean, he traded at 260 in running, then absolutely flew home to get back up near the line, looking sure like he'll improve for 7 furlongs. That was over 6. So again, that's another one with all sorts of promise, and it's got the right connections for this track. But of course, the price is the problem. You know, we're looking at 6 to 4, 7 to 4 in a race full of unexposed potential improvers. I mean, I know I'm echoing exactly what Keith said, but that's what I think. I think that Juan Elcano is the value.
Okay, Juan Elcano. Let's move on then from the uninformative and potential to the well-trodden. The Bunbury Cup, of course, comes up at 3:30. One of my favourite handicaps of the entire year. Spanish City is a horse that I'll be giving another cliff chance to. James, where does Spanish City feature in the betting, please?
He's our favourite, David, 9 to 2, followed by Kinneran at 6 to 1. Solar Gold is 8 to 1. Ambassadorial 10 to 1. Burnt Sugar 12 to 1. There's a heap of them then at 12 to 1 and 14 to 1 bar.
2 horses at the head of the market here, G-Rod, Kinneran and Spanish City, that don't tend to win that often. Always run cracking, eye-catching races. I suppose of the 2 of them, I should say, you know, I said here on Monday when I was chairing at the Postcast, Spanish City is one of these cliff horses for me. I will be going back in. He ran a cracker on the July course over 6 behind a stablemate last time. That form's pretty solid, I think we can say that. He looks like he's caught between 6 and 7 furlongs, doesn't he? And then you've got Kinneran, who's either drawn out of it, bumps into a group horse. Where do we go with these? Are these 2 that you're looking to take on, or?
Yeah, poor old Kinneran, that should be his name, shouldn't it? I mean, every time he just runs a solid race and bumps into 1 or 2. I mean, it can't keep happening. One will have to fall his way, but he's always the wrong sort of price. You know, he's always single figures, and you're thinking to yourself, this sort of horse, do you want to be taking single figures about him? I'm not sure that 7 furlongs, particularly a fairly fast 7 furlongs, is going to suit him. I would prefer Spanish City of the 2. Massive eye catcher at Epsom a couple of runs ago, and as you say, ran well at the course last time. At a bigger price, the one that I'm going to back though is Rip Off.
Ah.
You know, I always think of old, Julian Wilson when I think of Rip Off. You know, when he used to say, "Oh, and they're off." You know,
Bet like a man.
Yeah, you know, and Rip Off. This one, ran an absolute cracker behind Cape Byron a couple of starts ago, finishing 5th in a hot handicap at Ascot.
Cup, yeah.
And that obviously is decent form. You know, the winner's gone on to win the Wokingham and is almost favourite for the July Cup later on the card here. And last time out, Rip Off went off really well fancied favourite at Epsom, and I think the race was won by Corazon Espinado, and it was a strange old race where they went bonkers from the front.
Yeah.
Corazon Espinado flew the gate, so did the other one that was up there, Love Dreams, and they went absolutely bonkers. You thought the race would have to fall apart, and it
Doesn't happen
didn't.
at Epsom, does it?
No, it didn't, and nothing got into the race from behind. And Rip-Off was one of those who got caught in the ruck in behind. So I'm more than happy to forgive him that poor run at Epsom. It's one of those tracks that can happen. He's won at the course. He's a course winner. So he's got plenty in his favour. He's well handicapped as well. Rip-Off. Gerald Mosse.
Drawn in 5. The pace is interesting, isn't it? Lake Volta. Mark Johnson's probably the obvious pace angle in 19. So it depends, you know, we see in these Bunbury Cups, don't we, year after year, track the pace and you shouldn't be too far away. Keith, have you got an interesting angle for us here?
Well, the pace was the first thing I looked at in this race. From my very quick look through it, the pace all looks to be high, doesn't it?
It does.
All the pace. Like, I don't think there's anything drawn in single figures that'll want to be even prominent, particularly from what I remember. So you could end up with poor old Kinneran and poor old
Spanish City, yeah.
Good old Spanish City again. I mean, I've got a reasonably warm fancy in this one. I think Solar Gold's got a really, really good chance. She's improved absolutely loads in her 2 runs so far for William Haggis. And the first occasion she was beaten 3/4 a length by Forever in Dreams, who was then second in the Commonwealth Cup. Since then, run over 7 at Chelmsford when she had a troubled passage through. It was finishing as well as anything when she was third to Billisden Brook. She's back in a handicap now of 96, and albeit a competitive one, but she's drawn roughly on the right side. You know, she's taken those 2 big steps forward in her 2 runs for Haggis, and I just think if you didn't have such these perennial eye catchers in front of her in the market, she should potentially be right up there, because I think she's got a smashing chance.
Okay, that's interesting. Solar Gold, yeah. I mean, Haggis and these big handicaps, isn't it? James, what have you got for us in the Bunbury Cup?
Very similar to G-Rod. I'm going for Rip-Off. Completely forgive the run Epsom last time out. Just nothing worked out. And similar to that, his other worst ever performance was also at Epsom, so I completely forgive him that. back to his last winning mark as well off 93. Loves these big field handicaps. There's 2 lengths to make up on Kinnan from the Victoria Cup, but now there's an extra £5 swing. Won at this meeting last year. We know he goes on the track. Wouldn't be overly as worried as the lads about the pace in the race. I think the horse drawn 4, Stuart Williams' horse, who I won't even attempt to pronounce, he's gone forward his last 2 times, has been fairly keen as well, even at that day in the Victoria Cup. So I wouldn't be shocked if Wayne Lorden just kind of let him bowl along, get him into a rhythm. So I think it could get a nice bit of pace up there. But yeah, I think Ripworth at the prices I can see him definitely being in the top 5 with all those extra places out there as well. I think he'll run really well.
Alimara Taliyum. Does that sound about right?
Sounds all right, yeah.
I don't know how I managed to pull that one off. That's the Stuart Williams horse anyway. And that is the Bunbury Cup. Don't be afraid to take a price, I think is the message from the boys. Let's get to the Group 1 action then. 4:40, as G-Rod said, it's been moved back to accommodate the television. Yes, indeed, the 3-year-old sprinters meet the top sprinters. Royal Ascot form everywhere in the July Cup. James, let's stick with you. Please give us a market lowdown.
Advertise is the favourite here at 5-2, followed by Dream of Dreams, 130, Cape Byron 9-2, Brando 8-1, 10 Sovereigns 8-1, Fairyland 10s, Lamata 12s.
Okay, 3 of the last 4 have gone to the classic generation. Keith, I'm going to leave with you here. Are you an Advertise fan? Should we be backing him, or should we be taking him on in second-time blinkers?
I'm quite ambivalent on most of the horses at the top of the market. I mean, I wouldn't be at all surprised if any of them won. I'm not particularly against Advertise. My main thing with this race is that, you know, this race is not a race that's leaving me particularly warm about it. It looks like the sprint division is going to miss Blue Point an awful lot. And in circumstances like that, I just think 8-1 each way is a very big price about Brando, who's been placed in the last 2 runnings of this when they would have arguably been stronger races. He's shown more or less his best form this year. You can make excuses for one. I mean, Newmarket especially, he didn't look to be quite ready for that and whatnot. So I think in a race where, you know, you've got a lot of unknowns and nothing that's really horrendously inspiring, I think that Brando and playing a nice safe option each way is definitely the way to approach this race.
The pace is interesting in this, isn't it, guys? Because we should say that on the stand side is where the draw is. So the lower you are, the nearer the rail you are. So Dream of Dreams, second or third favourite, he's in 1. He's come from behind horse. He's going to need to catch up, assuming that they stick to the stand side. From memory, US Navy flag was always on the pace. In fact, he nearly made all, didn't he, last year, I think? And that was up the middle. Previous to that, I think Harry Angel wouldn't have been too far away. Up the middle, Lamato, who of course takes his chance again, 2016. Are we going to see some hard luck stories? Who's likely to make the running? Pretty Pollyanna, potentially?
Yeah, and she's not out of it, is she? You know, she has run some solid races. I mean, she was second behind Hermosa in the Irish Guineas, then went on finished down the field at probably a stiffer mile at Ascot last time. She's always had plenty of speed. It's going to be an interesting little race, isn't it? The one I don't like is Dream of Dreams. I'm going to set myself up for a fall here because you know what's then going to happen. It'll probably go on winging, but to my eyes, this horse just lacks a little bit of speed, and I can see him still being in last or second last, coming into the dip.
I'd hope on again, of course.
I mean, it's going to take a great effort to come up that hill and pass virtually all of them, especially top-class sprinters like this. So I was keen to take him on. I thought Advertise is the right favourite, impressive.
Second time blinkers?
Not too worried about that.
They were umming and ahhing, weren't they, whether to take him off or not?
Yeah, I think he should be all right. I know with some horses it can be a thing, but I think that tends to be more exposed handicappers who are a bit of thinkers. You know, I'm not sure that Advertisers got to that stage yet. I certainly hope not. It's a really, really tough race from a punting perspective, and it is ripe for an upset, but I'm not going to go for the upset. I'm going to go for the improving Cape Byron, who obviously comes here on the hat trick after 2 wins at Ascot. Just like the way he travels, goes through his races beautifully, seems to be able to get himself up there into a good position, which I believe is important at the track. And he never looked like being beaten in the Wokingham. He was always in the right place.
Gamble landed.
And he just ran on really powerfully, and he's obviously unexposed to over 6 furlongs, having been raced over mainly further throughout his career. And I think that he could be the Group 1 horse that they hope he is.
if my Spanish City finally manages to get over the line, James, we can expect another gamble on Cape Byron, I think, can't we? Are you looking at any of those prices and thinking, oh, that's one that we're a little bit of a grey area about, it could collapse? 10 Sovereigns, for example, he's all the way out to 10 to 1. He was a near even money favourite anti-post when Calix got ruled out of the Commonwealth Cup. James, has Ballydoyle got any chance of taking this home again?
I think Ballydoyle could have a very good chance of taking this home again, but I don't think it'll be 10 Sovereigns. I'm going to go with Fairyland for this. I just thought over 5 furlongs the last day, in the King's Stand against her elders, she's run an absolute blinder. She got a little outpaced when they quickened, and then the way she stayed onto the line would highly suggest that, this step up to 6 furlongs and what is a little bit of an easier track would suit her. I think that, she could get a lovely run into the race behind Major Jumbo, who's just drawn beside her. So I think the pace in the race could suit her, and I think she will stay on towards the finish. I think Ryan is on the wrong one, but he kind of probably has to ride her, or ride 10 Sovereigns due to kind of the stallion aspect of it. If 10 Sovereigns was to win the race and he was their first choice. Looking at the Commonwealth Cup form, I don't know how strong it is. The filly that was in second there was rated 98 going into the race, so how good it is, I'm not entirely sure. Probably going to get a different test as well. Like, it was good to soft that day when Advertised won. This is probably going to be on the faster side. I think Dream of Dreams, the less stiff track here, probably won't suit him as much. Cape Byron is obviously a very good handicapper, but again, it's that big stuff grade. So it's kind of the horses at the outside of the field, your Brandos, Fairylands, Lamatos that I was looking at here, and I ended up falling on Fairyland at the price of 10 to 1. Absolutely
absorbing Group 1, and for what it's worth, I think that Fairyland has got a very good chance as well. Just watch back that Royal Ascot run. Right, that's HQ at Newmarket done for you then. After this break, we'll be going up to the Knavesmire at York.
Here at Paddy Power, we're the home of the Money Back Special, with some incredible offers every single week. Check out the website or app today. Terms and conditions apply. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
Welcome back then. Up to the Knavesmire we go. Super Saturday. Small matter of the John Smith's Cup up there. But opening, of course, is the 205. The John Smith's City Walls listed burn up over 5 furlongs. James Ryan, please give us some prices.
Copper Knight is a 3 to 1 favourite. So joint favourite with Emblazoned, who's also 3 to 1. Caspian Prince 5 to 1, Final Venture 5 to 1, Poetry 8 to 1 and 10 to 1 bar.
G-Rod, what do we got?
Yeah, surely Copper Knight just wins, don't he? One of
you were keen on him last time, weren't you? I've got a feeling Keith was as well, but we'll come to that.
Yeah, we probably did our money last time, but I mean, he ran really well. Second in the Gosforth Park Cup, ran an absolute stormer, and was down the field in the Epsom Dash, but very, very, very unlucky there. So a triple course and distance winner. This is more of his track. I think Copper Knight will bounce back to winning ways.
Copper Knight for Tim Easterby for you then. Keith, you're a fan, am I correct in saying that, or have I just stitched you up?
Well, no, you're right in saying it, because I put him up last time when he was second at Newcastle. He's probably just a bit high to win these competitive races off 105. I think he's probably the right favourite for this race. And Blazon, you'd have maybe thought would have been regarded at one point as probably the best of these, but he has a little bit to prove now, I would suggest. I was slightly surprised that Graham wasn't a bit more keen on Caspian Prince. I think this will be much more his track than Sandown, where I know he fancied him quite well last week. He's drawn in 1 and he'll get that rail potentially, and it could prove quite hard to peg back potentially. So I'd be a little bit worried about him, assuming he can take 2 weeks of racing two Saturdays in a row. But yeah, I think Copper Knight's the right favourite.
James, anything for you here?
I think Final Venture's been fairly solid all year, and at 5 to 1, I think he's a fairly decent each way price. He always runs the race, albeit finds it tough to get his head in front, and Roland Whelan and riding with incredible confidence in Ireland at the moment, and just think he's one of the best riders on the scene. So he'll be the one for me. Certainly
deserves it, doesn't he, Final Venture, that's for sure. Mind you, said it's Cup and Not. Interesting race then, tricky one at that. OK, let's move on to the John Smith Silver Cup Stakes, going from 5 furlongs all the way up to a miles 6 at 240. James, who's your market leader here?
Weekender is our market leader here at 6 to 4, followed by Gold Mount 2 to 1, Raheen House 11 to 4, See the Line 6 to 1 and 16 to 1 bar.
Gold Mount versus Raheen House Mark II, Graham. Did it fall into his lap, or is he a worthy winner?
I thought he was a worthy winner. I thought he won the race well, course and distance, wasn't it? So shouldn't be any issue here. And I thought that Gold Mount should be favourite. I thought that form was stronger than what Weekender has to offer. Weekender obviously maybe a bit more sexy connections, and he does. I think he's a course winner as well. But I was impressed enough with Gold Mount to think that he should be favourite, and I wouldn't want to take him on.
Of course, the horse that used to be trained by Alan King and called Primitivo before he went over to Hong Kong. Keith, agree with G-Rod, or?
I mean, Weekender's just been aimed at the top 3 in the bag are probably all being aimed at the Ebor, to be honest. And so Weekender's form from the spring I could take as, being a means to an end to a large degree. I do agree with Graham that the Goldmount form and Raheem House form stronger than what he's got to offer. The one bit I'd say the other way around. I'd say Raheem House is the one I'd be really interested in. I didn't think you could make the case quite easily. I thought that he wasn't 100% fit for that one. It was his first of the season, whereas Goldmount had a race behind him. Raheem House travelled best and came clear of the rest, so he wouldn't have been far off full fitness. But I think there's enough there to say that you could definitely make the case that with a run behind him and a bit more time with William Haggis, that he could improve past him. So, the prices there's not an awful lot in them, 2-1 versus 11-4, but I'd have had them about level pegging, and that being the case, I'd be backing Raheem House, given he's nearly a point bigger.
Okay, two for either side at the moment. James, where are you going with this? What about See the Lion from Ireland? Thought he ran a cracker on his return at the Curragh.
He did indeed. He's a good and hard-knocking horse, and again, I'd say the Ebor is the ultimate aim with him after him being third in it last year. But he might just find it a little bit tricky off level weights against the likes of Weekender and Goldmount here. Unlike the lads, I've kind of gone for a Weekender here. I just think he's a very solid yardstick and beat Daniel Kodiak last night, who pretty much always runs to his mark. It just looks I thought I kind of looked at 2-horse race between himself and Goldmount, and probably will be close enough in the betting come the off, but I just about sided with Weekender.
Okay then, a couple for the market leaders all round. Let's move on. The 3:15, keeping with the John Smith's theme. Time for the racing handicap, Class 2, 105 over a mile. There's a horse here that I think will just win. So James, let's give you the prices and then I'll reveal who that is.
Escobar is our 9-4 favourite. Rise Hall is also 9-4. Sham Star 7-2. Dark Jedi 6-1. 10-1 bar.
This is surely got to be Rise Hall's race, isn't it? It's got to be, G-Rod. I just can't. I think this is, of all the favourites I've looked at, or joint favourites in Sam's market as it is, this is the one that I'll be piling into, I think, on Saturday.
I agree with you, yeah. I think Rice will win. The race that he won at Nottingham 2 starts ago, what a performance that was. It was a little bit like the Honest Albert run, but he came from a lot further back than Honest Albert. He was right at the back of the field being scrubbed up, and then he just seemed to find a different gear coming towards the last 2 furlongs and came from an impossible position to win. He's gone up in trip last time out at Newmarket, run perfectly well, but I'm not entirely sure that he wants a mile and 2 furlongs. Just look to stretch his stamina a little bit, and I think the long, straight, galloping course at York will really suit him. I can see him getting rolling from quite a way out and grinding them down all the way to the line. I think Rice will win. I just got to give Escobar a quick mention because obviously he was one of my best bets of the week last week, and he ran an absolute cracker, but they let Mojito have an easy lead under Frankie Dettori, and Andrea Azzini got caught in the inside and he was travelling, but he couldn't get to the winner. Ran an absolute cracker, but I'm not convinced that York is his track. He's run there twice and not run anywhere near as well as he has done at Sandown, which is one of his favourites. Yeah. So it has to be Rise Hall for me.
Keith, can you dampen our enthusiasm, or are you absolutely with us all the way?
More the latter. I looked at Rise Hall and thought, well, that's too bloody obvious, isn't it? So, the Rise Hall, I really do respect his chance. I think he's by far the more interesting out of him and Escobar, as far as I'm concerned. The young improving horse that's got some good form behind him, and anybody who says they're backing him, absolutely go ahead with it, because he would be the likeliest winner. The one I might put up at slightly bigger price to, if somebody wants to entertain, an alternative to us all just thinking that one wins, would be Crown Thorpe, who I think is an improving horse, who's shown himself like a horse that could be better than 94 even, when he's run over a couple of stiff miles this year at Beverley and at Newcastle. You can excuse last time he stumbled and unseated leaving the stalls. Sean Davis is, as we all know, a handy claimer, but he's been on him all year, so that effect doesn't really come into play today. But I can see that horse running a big race at 10s, but I definitely see the Rise Hall case, and if you told me, I couldn't say anything other than he's the likeliest winner.
James, what have you got to add to that? Are we expecting Rise Hall to go off clear fav now?
Yeah, I think Rise Hall will probably go off clear fav. The one thing for Escobar, he kind of missed the break the last day and the hood was removed slowly off him, so that was a little bit more of an excuse for him the last day. But I think Rise Hall could be the one horse in this race that has 10 pounds in hand, so I think he'll be very difficult to beat, and wouldn't be shocked if he went off kind of the more like 5-4, 6-4 mark than what he is now at the 9-4 mark.
Just one thing to say, lads, obviously we're talking about the just wins element of Rise Hall, and people might say, it's a big York race on a Saturday. How can you say that about a horse? But we can probably point out this maybe isn't the strongest Saturday not to 105 you'll ever see, is it?
Definitely not. That's why I like him, absolutely. I also think that if he wins, he gives a massive pointer to a horse in the John Smith's Cup, which comes up next to 350. And Marlon 2, they go up to one of the most competitive handicaps run all year on the flat. James Ryan, let's have a look at the prices and then we'll try and find one each.
Mountain Angel is the 4-1 favourite, followed by Style Hunter 11-2, Afak 7-1, Setting Sail 8-1, Exec Chief 10-1, Buzz 12-1, 12-1 bar.
Let's stick with you then, James. Have you got a really sexy one for us that you're going to smash into?
Not too sexy, but I'm taking a bit of a swing at one here, and I'm going down to near the very end of the page. I just see we just cut him from 33s to 20s, but Aquarium. He really caught my eye at Ascot. Now, it's one of these Mark Johnson horses that runs nearly every weekend, but just see, like, he was finishing really fast as probably every other horse in the race, apart from Ben Veracki, who I think has a great chance today. He ran the Old Newton Cup since, where nothing went right for him, slipped coming around the home bend after travelling really well. I completely forgive that run. I think he's going to be just a very big price, especially with other firms, and he'll probably be the big price the whole thing. I think the drop and trip will be really suit him. At the end of April, he was only beaten a length by Mountain Angel and giving him £4. Now he's receiving £3. He's a course and distance winner as well. I just think he's every chance of being really competitive here. For one of Mark Johnson's, he'll probably be dropped out the back, but I can see him travelling really well and coming through them and hopefully finishing off the race well. I probably one of my stronger bets of the week.
Oh, nice to hear. How many places are you going for the John Smith's Cup, James?
Currently, we're 5 places.
Currently, we're 5 places. Well, okay, so for him to get in the 5. Keith, that's an interesting angle, isn't it? Looking for one at a price that's got some back class or maybe has caught the eye, run into a bit of traffic. Are you looking towards the top of the market or...?
Well, in a race like this, if you're only backing one, you're as well to... You can find a horse with nearly as attractive a profile at a much bigger price than the potential market leaders, a lot of these horses have that attractive profile that makes them interesting. And I think if you're only having one, you're as well to have a bit of a swing for the fences. And I have done a bit the same with that myself. And it ties in quite well with what James has said, actually, because I'm actually putting up a horse that was beaten a net by Aquarium here in October, My Lord and Master. Now, as James says, Aquarium has been campaigned like a Mark Johnson horse he runs every day. But My Lord and Master, you can patently tell that since that October run, he's been saved for this race. He ran twice after that in November, both over 1.5 miles, which might end up being too far for him. Finished down the field both times. As a result, he's now £1 lower than when he was second to Aquarium over this course and distance. This is going to be his reappearance, but he's going to be absolutely hard fit. He's been gelded over the winter too. Kieran Fallon is back on for the first time since he was second to Aquarium, taking off a really useful £5. We all know that Fallon's a handy up-and-coming jockey. So yeah, just that it's got the look of a plot. The horse is about 16-1, and I think he's one that you're as well to swing at.
Yeah, can you win a John Smith's Cup first time out? I suppose if you're coming from Yorkshireman William Haggis's yard, it's possible, G-Rod.
Yeah, you wouldn't put anything past the great William Haggis, would you? I mean, what a trainer he is. I thought this was a really good race. The favourite Mountain Angel, I mean, that ran a stormer, didn't it, at Ascot? That race...
Should have finished closer, shouldn't it?
Should have done. And I mean, the 4 that finished ahead of it, Adabe, Latrobe, Magic Wand, Elecam. I mean, they're all group horses, definitely. Some of them may even be Group 1 horses. So that was a cracking effort by Mountain Angel, but he's got the weight, hasn't he, to show for it. He's right up at the top of the weights. So I fancied another one that was an eye-catching runner at Royal Ascot, and that was Style Hunter, who finished 4th in the Royal Hunt Cup.
Staying on pretty strongly.
You will not see a horse finish much stronger than that throughout the whole week. He was absolutely making ground, hand over fist on the winner, Afak. I'll be absolutely amazed if Style Hunter doesn't reverse the form over this longer distance. He's got form over 1 mile and 2. He's won over the course, and he was very impressive. Not over the course, over the trip. He was very impressive when he did so. Won by 6 lengths, but he's still quite unexposed at the distance. He's not raced that often beyond 1 mile, and as a result, I think he could still be a step ahead of the handicapper, Style Hunter.
The one that I liked, going back to Rise Hall, is Setting Sail. He's just a horse that I've been with since the start. I thought he looked so good at Wolverhampton on his return. Too keen, wasn't he, over 1.4 mile at Ascot. Epsom got a horrible passage, I'll leave it at that. And then Kevin McAvoy got on last time and he won like I thought a group horse. The ground is of some concern. Jamie Spencer gets on, which is quite interesting. But of the market leaders, I thought he'd do for me. Star Hunter I can go with as well.
If that Rise Hall wins, because there is collateral form there.
He could well off.
He could go off favourite.
Yeah, okay, all right. There is a small matter of Ascot to go to as well down at the Berkshire course. Just a small matter, of course. Summer Mile, the Group 2 is the feature there at 4 o'clock. But first of all, let's have a look at the sprint handicap there, if we may, chaps. 145, the Betfred Heritage Class 2 handicap. James, 'Tis Marvellous, I'm expecting to be your market leader.
Yes, indeed, and we're 5 places here as well. And 'Tis Marvellous is our 5-1 market leader. Empor 8-1, Bagum 8-1, Moyasar 9-1, Fulf BU 9-1, 12-1 bar.
Give us a quick lowdown on this, G-Rod.
Oh, it's a really tough race, isn't it? A bunch of horses that ran in that dash are reappearing in it, and obviously 'Tis Marvellous was second behind Kate Byron last time out, and I suppose having tipped Kate Byron for the Wokingham for the July Cup, you'll be wondering why I'm not going to tip 'Tis Marvellous, but
I am.
At the prices, he heads the market, and I do like Royal Birth at quite a big price for Stuart Williams. This horse ran really well at Chelmsford last time out. All of his best form is on the all-weather. But we do know there is that crossover between the all-weather and Ascot. Horses that handle the all-weather do seem to go well on Ascot straight track, and he was a good example of that. I think he won this race in 2016 off a much lower mark than his all-weather rating, and he's going to bid to do it again. Stuart Williams' team have hit some form recently. I think he's had 2 winners from something like his last 9 or 10 runners, and I could see Royal Birth running really well at a track we know he likes.
Okay, Keith?
I've gone for a little bit of a tentative, again, a bit of a swing at the fences. I think there's a potential opportunity for Lionel Reason to run a big race here at about 20-1. He's been looking like he ran in the dash, like Graham said, and he needs a stiffer 5 these days. He's been looking like a horse. He flew home in the Jump Jockeys Nunthorpe last time and has done so a couple of other times this year. He's on a mark where he can win from. He was second off £5 higher just in April. And a stiff 5 with Luke Morris taking the ride now to a very strong rider with 5 places to go at, and a horse that's well handicapped and looking like he's getting conditions to suit. I thought he was one that was worth having a little look at.
Okay, James, what about you? Have you got one quickly for us?
Very similar to G-Rod, Royal Birth. Very good Ascot form, much lower mark in comparison to the all-weather. He's run 4 times at Ascot, being in the top 3 by furlongs. I think we'll see them down at the ground, and a lot of these look like they could be 6 furlong horses. The Chelmsford run last time was as good as his good form off the mark that he was on. So he's the one I'm going to go for as well.
It's like a nightmare to me, that race. I'll be giving it the swerve. 4 o'clock at the Fred Cowley MBE Memorial Summer Mile. Then James, give us some prices for this if you wouldn't mind. Beat the Bank near the top of the market.
He is indeed. He's a 94 joint favourite along with Zaki, who's also 94. Matterhorn 5-1, Accidental Agent 6-1, and 12-1 bar.
Wow, Keith, Accidental Agent. What on earth do we do with this horse if you're a punter?
Well, the first thing we do is we ask James how likely he is to give a justice refund if he doesn't come out the stalls.
Is that Paddy Power are known to do that? Let's put it that way.
I'd say that'd be 0 after the last time.
Well, that's a cynical play, isn't it? To go to one of these firms that tend to do that and back him at 6-1 or whatever price he is, because he's not that price on form. He should be up with the others on the form.
He should be nearly favourite, surely, shouldn't he?
Well, and what he's done at Ascot and all that sort of stuff. So that's the deeply cynical play you would take on in this race for me, with the Accidental Agent. But taking out trying to any sharp practices like that, I would be far more likely to go with Beat the Bank over Zaki. I'm starting to sort of have some doubts about whether Zaki's form actually lives up to horses that have got form with the best milers around. We know it's not the best miling division, but it's not often the case that the Group 1 form's represented in this race, and it is with Beat the Bank and Accidental Agent, and I'd say that Beat the Bank's a far more likely winner than Zaki out of the 2 joint favourites. But yeah, the Accidental Agent angle is very, very tempting, because he should be right up with those 2 on form.
Yeah, if he jumps off, it's going to crash in running, G-Rod, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. He's probably got the best form in the race. As you say, that run in the Lockinge was massively eye-catching. But is he going to jump off? And this is one of those races where you can throw a few question marks at a few of them, because Zaki has a terrible habit of missing the break. I mean, he is almost always slowly away from the stalls. So you could quite easily have a situation where Zaki and Accidental Agent are having a little conversation, but while the others run away from them. I'm absolutely convinced Beat the Bank wants further than a mile. Every time I see him over a mile, he looks like he needs further, especially round the bend when there's a little bit less emphasis on stamina. If he wins, I think he'll come under pressure and then he'll look like he's going to get beat and then he'll outstay them. So there's question marks about Zaki, Beat the Bank and Accidental Agent. Matterhorn will make the run in, you would have thought.
I think so.
He's definitely got form over further. I think they'll be bouncing him out to try and win it. But I'm not convinced about him either. I don't think he's quite up to this sort of grade. And he's not really a massive price either.
He's an extremely likeable horse, isn't he? And it is really difficult to make call on this mile. So who's going to win?
So for me, it's between Wadil Safa and Awesome Tank for a big upset. And I'm going to take a chance on Wadil Safa, who was really disappointing behind Zaki at the track 2 runs
Burrows
ago.
is out of form, we should say.
Yeah, he was, and right back to form last time when second at York, albeit in listed company. I think that form is kind of on a parallel to what Matterhorn has got to offer, and you're looking at almost double the price on Wadil Safa of Matterhorn, so I have to back Wadil Safa.
Tricky race then, James. Do you like one?
I do, but again, going for an even bigger upset than what Girod's gone for there. I think Tip to Win ranked really encouraging on his last start at Ascot. He just got completely outpaced for all the race, and then he finished nearly I think it was the third finish fasting furlong in the race at Ascot. So if he goes back to that form, second in the Guineas last year, give him a right chance at a big price at 33-1. Especially I have lots of question marks over the front end of the market. I think Accidental Agent would be a lot shorter if we knew he was going to jump, but that's built into the price, which therefore there wouldn't be a justice refund once he's done it once. I think Tip to Win, I'll take a chance on him at a big price.
You're wondering why we call it Super Saturday, not just Newmarket, Ascot and York to go through. There's also Navan, Chester, Newton Abbot. I'm having to look down because there's so much. Limerick, Salisbury and Hamilton in the evening. Gents, let's go to you, James, first. Is there anything we should be looking at any of these other tracks for the punters out there?
Just devastated here. I just see he's a non-runner. Ennis Tamon of Aiden's in the maiden in the first.
Loads to talk about that.
Put him in your backers. This filly, I think she could be a Group 1 filly. Go back and watch her first run. I think she could be fairly special.
That was at the Curragh, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. Any bets for you, James, elsewhere?
No, that's it. Just the main races.
Okay. Keith, how about you?
I had a look at Newton Abbot. There's a Class 2 handicap chase there over 3 mile 2, and the very interesting horse in that race is Scoop the Pot for Philip Hobbs. Now, I wouldn't be advising to bet this until you see how it plays in the market, because it's not run since December. But it had some reasonable form in the tail end of the last summer season. A couple of decent efforts in the winter as well before he was put away. There's a chance this horse has got a decent summer pot in him. He's well bred, he's talented, and he's taken to fences eventually. If the money is strong for him tomorrow, I think he could well win tomorrow, but there's a chance that there's probably a bigger summer pot in him down the line somewhere. He's the most interesting horse in that Newton Abbot card.
Hats off to Keith. I mean, looking at Newton Abbot through all of this and going through it all. I mean, I couldn't have got there. G-Rod, have you got anything in the bumper for us?
I didn't get as far as Newton Abbot, sadly. I just did have one at York in the 4:25, which is Mackawee, who was very impressive when winning at the track 3 starts ago. 2 runs ago, went off favourite there. Just got marooned on sort of this side of the course. The race seemed to develop the other side. Didn't really think things panned out for Mackawee. Not really sure what happened last time in a Pontefract listed race. Maybe just didn't set up. But we're back at York, where all Mackawee's best form is. And going up in trips shouldn't be an issue. 1 over a mile and 6 furlongs at Wetherby, and did that very nicely. So up to 2 miles might suit Mackawee. That's the 4:25 at York.
Lovely stuff. All right, well, here comes the time most of you have been waiting for. Time for the Saturday naps.
This will not be beaten.
James Ryan, give us a sizzler from Paddy Power, please.
Fairyland for me is my nap of the week.
Nice and succinct. Keith, what do you got?
Solar Gold.
Solar Gold in the Bunbury Cup. Keeping it nice and simple, lads, aren't we? G-Rod.
It's going to be Juan Elcano for me in the 2:55 at Newmarket.
And I'll give you a nice short one, Rise Hall, as we've mentioned in that York race. Okay, that's Saturday, done and dusted, Super Saturday. After this break, we'll be taking a quick look at Sunday's action.
Check out Paddy's Rewards Club. Simply place 5 bets of £10 or more across any sport in a week, and you'll get a free £10 bet then next week. T&Cs apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
All right, then after the dust has settled on Super Saturday, let's hope you're playing up your winnings on Sunday. The racing, of course, comes from Sligo and Fairyhouse in Ireland, over the jumps, Perth and Stratford in Britain, and of course a little matter of a Group 1 at Paris Longchamp. And where we're going to go with this, James Ryan, I have this feeling there's a horse called Japan running in the Grand Steeplechase de Paris. Is he going to be odds on?
He is indeed. He's very short. This is a terrible race. Japan's our 4-7 favourite, and I'd imagine he can go even shorter. Roman Candle 6-1, Slalom 6-1, Jow Mood, of course, English Train 10-1, in favour 16-1 at 16-1 bar.
G-Rod, I want to come to you with this because just before we came in the studio, you said it was around about that sort of price for Japan, and you're thinking about taking him on. What are you absolutely mad?
I don't think that was a very strong race that he won at Ascot. Now, don't get me wrong. He did it well. He was very, very impressive. He absolutely bolted up. But I do not rate the second at all, Bangkok. I do not think he's that good. And if he was good enough to beat the rest, then that doesn't tell me a lot about the rest. And I'm more than happy to be opposing Japan at a very, very, very short price.
What with?
On the back of one good run, really. I know he ran well in the Derby, all right, maybe he had an interrupted preparation or whatever, but whatever, he was beaten in the Derby, and Anthony Van Dyke, not really great form, was it, following in up in the Irish Derby? So
Worked out as well. Circus Maximus says I could throw that in.
Well, I remember someone saying, how strong is the form, and someone saying Circus Maximus and Japan himself. But you know, I'm keen to take him on, and if you're going to take him on, it has to be Roman Candle for Andre Farb, who stayed on really strongly to win over 1.25 miles 2 runs ago, looking like he would certainly improve for a step up to 1.5 miles. And that's the interesting thing here, isn't it? The Grand Prix de Paris is over 1.5 miles, whereas the French Derby is 1.25 miles. And in that French Derby last time, he just didn't get the run of the race. He got caught on the inside, not clear run. Sounds like a typical sort of French race. It all got a bit tactical, didn't really suit him. I think the step up in trip will suit Roman Candle. This track might also suit him better than Shanti. And I think he could upset Japan, Roman Candle, in the Grand Prix de Paris. That's 6:45 at Longchamp on Sunday.
Interesting, Keith, isn't it? That they're not. I mean, loads of people after he won at Royal Ascot, Keith said, well, this has got to go for the King George now. Do you think they're running scared of a Enable? Are they trying to nick a Group 1 for Japan? What's going on here?
Oh, they're definitely trying to nick a Group 1. I don't think there's any question about that. Ballydoyle do this quite a lot. They try and target the Grand Prix de Paris and see what they can get away with. I think they might. I mean, to be honest, my working out is very, very similar to Graham's. I do like Roman Candle. I put him up for the French Derby. And think, but with the concern that he's only really going to thrive once he gets 1.5 miles later in the year, and the way he's shaped that day does suggest that. I think I would make the case for him being a little bit closer to Japan in the betting, but I couldn't go as far as to recommend him against him. But the rationale is absolutely right for me, because I think that Roman Candle is going to end up at least Group 2 quality, potentially Group 1 quality, over 1.5 miles as the year goes on. Japan. Yeah, he could be the best 1.5 miles 3-year-old around, potentially. I mean, he's shaped quite well in the Derby. I don't think Epsom's going to be his track. He always looks like a big tall horse who's going to suit a more galloping track. I do think he'll win on Sunday, but yeah, I think Roman Candle will give him more of a race than the prices suggest.
James, is this a gift horse in the mouth, or are we looking at a horse that might drift on from what does seem quite a short price then?
I think Japan could be the real deal. Going back and looking at that race in Ascot, like, he travelled an extra 20 metres further than Bangkok that day, and similar to the lads, I wouldn't particularly like the form in behind, but I just think he could be a different gravy to these. I think he's a proper Group 1 horse in here, and a lot of these are probably only going to be Group 3, Group 2 horses in the fullness of time. I think he's pretty much a good thing, I'd say.
That is a look at Paris Longchamp then. Let's have a look at some more domestic action then. Graham, one pick from one of the other meetings?
350 at Perth, the Flying Portrait caught my eye. A course and distance winner who's dropped back to a nice mark. He's an old favourite. He's a bit of a regular in the summer. But he has his days, and I thought this might be his day. The Flying Portrait, 350 at Perth.
Nice. Keith, a strong one, please, from you on Sunday.
I'm going for the other big chase at Perth, the Flying Portrait. What standing dish he is, isn't he? And if he fancies it, then he often picks up one of these summer races. I like Fenland's Hill in the 5 o'clock. Interesting that he's only come over here once before. He ran off £11 higher at Perth finished 7 lengths behind Hammersley Lake. He's had a relatively quiet time of it recently until his last run at Wexford, when he came out and run a much better race than before, sort of catching the eye a little bit. The fact he comes back to Britain this time off a much lower mark than he was when he came over in September is a bit of a siren to me. And the race is not in against an awful lot, considering it's an up to 130.
I'm covering pace Perth for the Racing Post on Sunday, so my interest in the car just heightened. Thanks for that, lads. James, what have you got for us on the Sunday?
There's a good meeting at Ferryhouse with the Group 3 Brownstown Stakes on at 3:10. There's a couple of English riders over, Heavenly Holly, Indian Blessing and Perfection. But I'm going to go for the Michael Halford train, Surrounding, who's again ridden by the excellent Ronan Wheeling. Just beaten on Derby Day at Curra just by a nose, which is fairly heartbreaking, but I think she could just bring the best form into this and I think she'd be tough to beat.
Okay, there's a good look at Sunday's racing for you then, and one from each of the panel. Thanks for listening then today. If you've enjoyed this, don't forget, of course, to rate it on social media, YouTube. Get in there, tell us what your fancies are. You often get a reply from one of the producers, of course. Maddie will be back in the chair on Monday from our holidays, and later in the week, it's a sizzling week coming up. Bruce will be joined by Steve Palmer to have a look at the Open as well. I absolutely love that. Big betting week coming up again. All the best out there. Stay with us here on the Racing Post.
Success ain't earned, it's bought. That's why at Paddy Power, we paid the big bucks for the best tech nerds in the world to develop our new, fastest ever app. Download the new app from the App Store or Play Store now. 18+, BeGambleAware.org.